When Jenna got back from her retreat in Kansas, I wasn't home. I was up in the Colorado mountains, in the place we were supposed to call ours. Her late grandmother's cabin. The one with the chipped porch swing and the narrow wood stove that never heated the back rooms properly. The kind of place that looked like it belonged in a snow globe until you actually lived in it, and found the draft under every window and the silence between every creaking floorboard. We used to joke it'd be our escape, our retirement in advance. It was where she said she wanted to slow life down, where we'd start fresh after the wedding. So when the silence started getting louder between us, that's where I went. To the place that once promised new beginnings, to sort through the pieces that didn't seem to fit anymore. I arrived 2 days before Jenna's return. It was already cold up there. Too early for snow, but cold enough that your breath lingered and your hands stayed buried in your coat pockets. The cabin hadn't changed. The same faded deer-patterned blanket on the couch. The same jar of lavender sachets hanging by the window, dry and brittle but still clinging to a faint smell of someone else's memory. Her grandmother had loved this place, and I had tried to love it too, because she did. But walking through it alone, all I saw were ghosts of conversations we never had. Promises that never made it past planning. Everything felt too intact for how broken I felt inside. I didn't move much once I got there. I didn't need to. I brought only what I had to. My backpack, my notebook, and the worn-out duffel I kept under the bed back home. But I packed her things with more care than I expected from myself. It was like muscle memory took over. Every sweater, every book she left last winter, even her knit socks that she only wore during storms. I folded them and placed them into the old brown suitcase with the torn handle. It had traveled the world with her before she met me. The same one that sat in her closet untouched for years, until now. I placed it by the door, handle up, waiting. The bourbon came next. 2 fingers, no ice. I left the glass out on the kitchen table. Not for her. For me. For the part of me that needed something final to look at. Inside the glass, at the bottom, her engagement ring. Simple, gold, no stones, just like she wanted. She'd taken it off before she left for Kansas. For the massage, she'd said. At the time, I nodded. But something about how easily she said it didn't sit right. You don't take off a symbol like that for a spa treatment. You don't forget to put it back on. Unless maybe you already did the forgetting before the trip. I sat in the cabin for hours that evening, hearing nothing but the occasional groan of the wood as the temperature dropped. I didn't light a fire. I didn't turn on music. I just watched the last light fall across the floorboards and waited for whatever was supposed to come next. I knew she'd show up late. Jenna never liked arriving anywhere when it was expected of her. She said she hated feeling watched. Hated the idea of being greeted like someone coming home from war. So I didn't wait at the door. I let the house greet her instead. Let the stillness do the talking. When her car finally crunched over the gravel just past midnight, I stayed seated. I heard the tires come to a stop. Then the engine cut. Then nothing for a long time. I imagined her sitting in the car, staring at the porch light I'd left on. Maybe rehearsing what she'd say. Or maybe hoping I wasn't there. But she came in anyway. The front door creaked like always, it never quite closed right in the cold. And then I heard her steps. Light, cautious, careful not to wake something she didn't want to confront. When she saw me sitting there at the table, she stopped. Her eyes scanned the room like she didn't recognize it. Or maybe she didn't recognize me. I'd been wearing the same hoodie for 2 days. I hadn't shaved. I must have looked like I belonged to the walls more than to her. She didn't say anything at first. Just dropped her keys into the dish by the door, a habit of hers, and kicked off her sandals. Sandals. In October. In Colorado. That's when I looked up. The dress she wore was light, sleeveless, pale green. Not something you'd pack for a retreat in Kansas. And definitely not something I'd seen her wear before. Her hair was tousled, slightly curled at the ends in a way that wasn't natural for her. She wasn't wearing lipstick, odd for Jenna, who always claimed her face felt incomplete without it. But her cheeks were flushed, like she'd just come from somewhere warm, or from someone's hands. Then I saw the necklace. Thin, silver with a tiny charm. Looked like a leaf or a feather, I couldn't tell in the low light. It didn't matter. I hadn't given it to her. She noticed where my eyes landed and reached up instinctively, touching it. Her fingers lingered there for a second too long before she said, "It's just a gift." Her voice cracked slightly on the word gift, and she cleared her throat. From a colleague. For helping on a campaign. She wasn't looking at me. I nodded once. Not out of understanding. Just confirmation. Confirmation that this wasn't about Kansas. It wasn't about work. It wasn't about her finding herself, like she said when she left. It was about her losing me, or choosing to. She looked around again, at the bourbon glass, at the ring glinting in the bottom like a stone dropped into a river. Then she looked at the suitcase by the door. "Did something happen?" she asked, quieter now, as if this were all brand new to her. I wanted to laugh. Instead, I stood up, slow and calm, walked to the coat rack, pulled my jacket off the hook, and slipped it on. I didn't answer her question, because she knew the answer. The moment she touched that necklace, like she could tuck the truth back under her collar, I saw it all. The distance, the changed routine, the perfume I didn't recognize 2 weeks ago, the music she started listening to through headphones instead of the speaker we used to share in the kitchen, her silences, her sudden bursts of irritation, her girls' nights that had become longer and more vague. It wasn't about one trip. It wasn't about one gift. It was about the entire pattern unraveling. She took a small step forward. "Can we talk?" I looked her in the eyes for the first time that night. Really looked. And all I saw was someone I used to believe in. "We could," I said, hand on the door. "But I think you've already said what you needed to." Then I stepped out onto the porch, leaving the door open behind me. Let the wind carry the rest. After that night at the cabin, I didn't go back to our apartment. I drove for hours, first downhill, then out toward no particular direction, letting the mountain roads wind me away from everything familiar. By the time I pulled into a cheap roadside inn and collapsed on the bed, it was nearly 4 a.m. The lamp flickered when I turned it on. The mattress felt like cardboard, but I didn't care. I wasn't looking for sleep anyway. That night, I lay there in a stranger's room, staring at the ceiling as my mind ran through the last 6 months like a film reel unraveling. No longer a blur, but sharp, grainy, and way too loud. All the pieces that never made sense started forming a complete picture. It didn't happen all at once. Not like some thunderclap of revelation. No, Jenna changed in fragments. Tiny, deliberate shifts so small at first I brushed them off as normal phases. I told myself it was work stress, wedding pressure, burnout. But looking back, those fragments were signs. Warnings, really. And I'd ignored them all. I remember the first time I noticed her screen light up after midnight. She was curled up next to me in bed, half asleep, or pretending to be. The screen lit up her face in a soft blue glow, and she moved so quickly it was almost reflex. Phone flipped over. Screen down. No buzz. Just light. She said it was work. That her boss had insomnia and always sent emails late. At the time, I believed her. Or maybe I wanted to. But after that, the phone stopped buzzing entirely. Not because people stopped texting, but because she started keeping it on silent. Always. Even at home. And always face down, as if even the wallpaper image might betray her. I asked about it once, jokingly. She shrugged and said, "Notifications give me anxiety." Then came the perfume. It wasn't the one she wore when we first met. The soft, powdery kind I used to compliment without even realizing. No, this new one was different. Spicier. Louder. Like it was trying to say something when she couldn't. She said she found it at a boutique in Chicago during a business trip, and that it made her feel grown up. I smiled and nodded. But I never forgot that she wasn't supposed to be in Chicago that week. She told me she was in Iowa. For a conference. I chalked it up to a miscommunication. Maybe I'd remembered wrong. I didn't press her, because that's what trust looks like when it's still alive. Giving someone the benefit of the doubt, even when your gut tells you not to. She also started dressing differently. Not all the time, just subtly. At work she wore blouses I hadn't seen before, Heels she used to say were too much for the office. And then there was the lingerie. I found it one afternoon while digging through the drawer we shared. A few pieces. Black lace, satin. Tags still attached. I blinked at them, confused at first. Because int asterisk Macy between us had all but disappeared by then. It was the kind of lingerie you save for someone's eyes. And those eyes weren't mine anymore. When I asked, trying to be light about it, trying not to sound jealous, she laughed and said, "I'm saving it for the honeymoon." I remember smiling, but something inside me sank a little. That quiet kind of ache that you don't mention because you're afraid of sounding paranoid. She also started using headphones all the time. That might sound small, but it wasn't. Jenna used to play music out loud. Shared it with me, made me part of it. Sunday mornings were always filled with soft indie or acoustic covers echoing through the house while she brewed coffee. But then, one day, the music went silent. And the headphones came out. I'd catch her listening to something in the kitchen while cooking, soft jazz or moody lounge music. The kind she once said was too pretentious. I asked her once what song was playing, and she gave me a half smile and said, "Just something random from a playlist." But it wasn't random. It was curated. It was his music, I'm sure of that now. Then there were the nights out. Girls' nights, she called them. Except they started happening more often. Once a week turned into twice. Then 3. And each time she left later and came back later. No selfies. No check-ins. No tagged photos like she used to post back when she actually went out with her girlfriends. Just one story I remember in particular. A single cocktail glass resting on a marble bar top. Dim lighting. No people. The location tag said Chicago again. I remember seeing it on her Instagram at 10 p.m. And I stared at it like it was a mistake. She told me she was visiting family in Kansas that weekend. I even asked her about it. She blinked, paused, then said, "Oh, I passed through Chicago on the way back. Quick layover. Airport bar. Forgot to switch my location settings. Too fast. Too perfect. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like she had it ready just in case." After that, I stopped asking questions. Because every question chipped away at something I wasn't ready to lose. And it wasn't just the big things. It was how she stopped asking about my day. How she stopped correcting me when I got something wrong in a story. Jenna used to always interrupt me to fix the details. "You're remembering it wrong," she'd laugh. It was Wednesday, not Thursday. But then she stopped doing that. Like my version of things no longer mattered. And slowly I stopped offering them at all. What I remember most was the distance, not physical but emotional. Like living with someone who's already halfway out the door. The way her presence started to feel temporary. Like she was always in the middle of leaving even when she was right next to me. She'd drift into rooms like a ghost. Smiling at just the right moments. Laughing a beat too late. Touching my shoulder absent-mindedly but never really touching me. The int asterisk Macy that used to be instinctual. The small glances, the quiet hand squeezes, the brushing of arms while brushing our teeth. All of it evaporated. And I told myself it was just a rough patch. That everyone goes through these phases. But in truth, I think I knew. I think a part of me had already accepted it long before the night she walked through that cabin door with a stranger's necklace around her neck. That was just the confirmation. The proof was in all the little things that didn't make sense until I lined them up in my head. The half-truths, the shifts, the timing. The moments when her smile didn't reach her eyes. The nights when she came home and smelled like someone else's cologne. How many lies had I smiled through? How many times had I convinced myself she was just tired, just stressed, just distant for no reason? There's a cruelty in hindsight, a sharpness. Because once the story is complete, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to being innocent. You only get to be blindsided once. After that, you're just someone who ignored the signs. And now I couldn't sleep. Not just because I was hurt, but because my brain refused to shut up. Kept replaying everything I'd brushed aside. Every small choice she made that, in the moment, felt harmless. Harmless until they became patterns. Patterns that became secrets. Secrets that became someone else. By sunrise, I sat on the edge of the motel bed, phone in hand, staring at her name in my contacts. I didn't call her. There was nothing left to ask. I already knew the truth. I just hadn't seen the evidence yet. But I could feel it coming. Like a freight train I couldn't stop. It happened a week after the cabin. By then, the silence between Jenna and me had become its own language. We weren't exactly talking, but we weren't fully separated either. Just orbiting each other like two moons circling a dead planet. There were still shared groceries in the fridge. Still our coats hanging by the door. Her toothbrush was still in the holder next to mine, though we both knew neither of us was using it anymore. We'd become polite strangers in a house that used to be loud with laughter. I moved back into the apartment mostly for practical reasons. My work laptop, clothes, and sense of obligation still lived there. Jenna was already back too. She acted like nothing had happened, as if the cabin never existed. She slipped easily into routines. Making coffee, throwing in laundry, leaving her shoes in the exact spot I always used to trip over them. If I hadn't seen the dress, if I hadn't seen the necklace, if I hadn't seen the lie crack open in her eyes that night, maybe I'd still be trying to believe her. But I wasn't trying anymore. I didn't argue. I didn't pry. I just observed. Calm, distant, clinical, like watching the final days of something already diagnosed. Then came the envelope. No return address. No name. Just left on our kitchen table like a misplaced bill or grocery flyer. At first I thought Jenna had brought it in and forgotten about it, until I noticed the slight smudge of dirt on the bottom corner, like it had been slid under a door. It wasn't sealed. No note inside. Just 4 glossy photographs. I wish I could say I hesitated to look, that I considered throwing them out, or that I thought about respecting her privacy, or holding out hope just one more day. But I didn't. I unfolded the flap and slid the photos into my hand, one by one, like cards in a game no one wins. The first image hit like a punch to the ribs. Jenna, walking down a hallway, a hotel. St. Louis, according to the logo on the blurry wall plaque. She was wearing that same pale green dress from the cabin, hair tucked behind one ear, smiling softly. Beside her, a man in a light blue shirt, mid-30s tall, hand placed gently on the small of her back. Not friendly. Int asterisk mate. The second photo was clearer. A rooftop bar, golden hour lighting casting a warm glow over the scene. A table set for 2. Wine glasses, untouched food, city lights flickering in the background. They were sitting close, too close, her hand resting on his thigh, his arm behind her on the bench. The third was a selfie, a mirror sh*t taken in a hotel bathroom, steam fogging the glass slightly. Jenna in a towel, her hair wet, mouth slightly open like she'd been mid-laugh. Behind her, just barely in frame, that same man, shirtless, reclining on the edge of the hotel bed, looking directly at the camera with an expression that could only be described as familiar. Int asterisk mate. Casual. Like this wasn't their first time. Like she had done this before. The last image wasn't a photo at all. It was a screensh*t of a text exchange. Her name at the top of the bubble. Her message. Still remember the taste. His reply, quick and confident. We'll do it again soon. Same place? No date. No timestamps. But I didn't need them. I felt the cold rush of certainty rise from my gut and settle in my chest like ice. Not rage. Not disbelief. Just the quiet, steady confirmation of everything I already knew. This wasn't flirting. This wasn't emotional confusion. This wasn't her being lost. It was real. It was physical. It was betrayal. And it had been happening for a while. My hands didn't shake. My eyes didn't tear up. There was no outburst. No broken glass or screamed curse. Just silence. The kind of silence that comes when the dam has already broken and there's nothing left to hold back. I set the photos down on the table one by one, laid them out like evidence in a courtroom. Then I sat back, staring at them. And I waited. I didn't have to wait long. Jenna came home maybe 10 minutes later. Grocery bags in one hand, keys dangling in the other. She wore that same neutral smile she'd been putting on for days. The one that said, "Let's pretend we're okay." She paused when she saw me at the table. Then her eyes landed on the photos. She didn't speak. Not at first. Her body froze mid-step. Her face went pale. Then she looked at me. Not with shock, not with denial, but with the kind of dread that only comes from getting caught completely. There was no room for ambiguity. Her eyes flicked to the towel photo, then to the text message. I watched her throat tighten as she swallowed hard. She looked down, opened her mouth, closed it, then finally said, "Where did you get those?" That was her first question. Not, "It's not what it looks like." Not, "That's not me." Just, "Where did you get those?" That told me everything. I didn't answer. I just stood up slowly and walked past her into the living room. She followed. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice quieter now, almost scared. I looked at her, the woman I'd asked to spend forever with. The woman who said yes to a life with me, then quietly started carving out a life without me. "We can," I said. "But not right now." She blinked. "Why not?" I looked her straight in the eye. "Because I've spent the last year talking to someone who wasn't actually here." That landed. She took a breath to argue, then let it out slowly. She knew I was right. The rest of the evening passed in slow motion. She didn't touch the photos, didn't throw them away, just stood near them like they might explode. At one point, I heard her go into the bathroom and cry. She tried to muffle it with a towel. I didn't go after her. I sat on the couch, scrolling through nothing on my phone, waiting for the numbness to turn into something useful. Rage, closure, direction. Instead, all I felt was hollow. At midnight, I found myself staring at the ring box again. I had taken it out earlier in the week, not really knowing why. Maybe I thought I'd need it for a confrontation, or maybe I just wanted to remember what it felt like. When I thought this story would end with a wedding, not a photograph, I opened the box and looked at the ring. Simple. Gold. Hers. Then I closed it and placed it back in the drawer. That chapter was over. And now, for the first time, I had proof. Undeniable. Irreversible. The kind of truth you can't argue or spin or soften. And I knew whatever happened next, there was no going back. I didn't confront her again after that night. I didn't throw the photos in her face or scream or ask for confessions I already had answers to. There was no need. The truth didn't need to be discussed. It was already in the open, stretched out across our kitchen table in glossy, undeniable color. Instead, I started gathering evidence. Not because I wanted to ruin her, but because I wasn't going to be the fool in this story. Our laptop was the first place I checked. The same one we'd shared for years. The same one she used for planning the wedding, booking venues, designing invitations. She'd left it open on the dining table the morning after I found the photos. Maybe she forgot, or maybe she assumed I wouldn't look. But I did. I didn't have to dig far. There were receipts. Not just one or two, but a full trail. Bookings, emails, digital breadcrumbs she hadn't even bothered to clean up. A reservation at the rooftop bar in St. Louis. A couple spa package at a luxury resort in Kansas City. 2 tickets to an art exhibit in Chicago. A hotel room billed to her corporate card with a check-in date that didn't match her retreat. I cross-checked everything. I built a timeline. Each date lined up perfectly with her vague excuses. Team building, outreach summit, wellness getaway. I remembered every one of those phrases. I remembered the way she said them like she was reading a script written by someone else. I organized the files into a single folder. PDFs. *TS. Confirmation emails. I gave the folder a simple name. Discrepancies. No drama. No accusations. Just data. Then I wrote the email. It was addressed to her HR director. Someone I'd met once at a company mixer. Someone who'd shaken my hand and complimented my tie. I kept the message professional. Brief. No theatrics. Hi, name. I hope you're well. I wanted to bring to your attention some inconsistencies I've noticed between Jenna's reported work travel and actual booking records. I've compiled everything in the attached folder. I'm not seeking retaliation. I just believe this may be something worth looking into from an internal policy standpoint. Regards. My name. Then I hit send. No rage. No vengeance. Just clarity. I shut the laptop, walked to the kitchen, and made coffee. She was still asleep in the bedroom. Or pretending to be. I didn't speak to her that day. Didn't have to. The silence said enough. Over the next 3 days, Jenna behaved like someone trying to reverse gravity. She cleaned the apartment top to bottom, scrubbing the grout between the tiles, organizing the fridge alphabetically. She asked what I wanted for dinner, asked about my day, sat down next to me on the couch and tried to make small talk about documentaries we never finished watching. I nodded, smiled, but it wasn't real. I watched her the way you watch a stranger pretending to be someone you used to love. She knew something had shifted. She just didn't know how far it had already gone. It wasn't until her phone rang that she finally understood. It was mid-afternoon. She was standing by the window watering the plant she always forgot about, talking to it even, and then her ringtone buzzed from the kitchen counter. She looked down, saw the caller ID, and froze. She didn't answer right away, just stared at the screen like it might explode. Finally, she picked it up and stepped out onto the balcony barefoot, glass door sliding quietly behind her. I watched her through the glass, her face pale, her lips tight. She was nodding, saying little, just, yes. I understand. Thank you. No dramatics, just dread. When she came back inside, her expression was blank, like she'd swallowed a grenade and was waiting for it to go off. She didn't speak, didn't cry, just went into the bedroom, closed the door softly, and sat on the edge of the bed for over an hour. Didn't move, just sat there like someone staring at the edge of a cliff. That evening, she finally spoke. I got a call, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. From HR. I didn't look up from my book. There, reviewing my travel claims. I nodded once. She waited for me to ask something, to react. But I didn't. I just turned the page. After a long pause, she said, "Did you send them something?" I didn't answer. She took a shaky breath. "Okay," she said, quieter now. "Okay." Then she walked to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and stared out the window for a long time. I wondered what she saw out there because whatever it wasn't coming back. I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't feel cruel. I felt done. This wasn't payback. This was acknowledgement. Her choices had consequences, not because I said so, but because she had built them herself. I just pointed to the shovel. The days after that were silent again, but heavier now. She moved slower, talked less. Her phone stayed face down, untouched. She didn't even pretend to sleep anymore. Just lay on her side with her eyes open, like someone bracing for impact. One night, I heard her crying in the bathroom. Quiet, controlled. The kind of crying you do when you don't want anyone to come check on you. I didn't. I just stared at the ceiling and waited for it to end. And then, like clockwork, she tried to rebuild the version of herself she thought I wanted. She cooked my favorite meal, set the table for two, even folded napkins the way she used to on anniversaries. When I walked in, she smiled like nothing was broken. "I made dinner," she said, gesturing like it was a gift. I sat down, quietly, thanked her. She waited, hoping, desperate. Her eyes flicking to mine every few seconds like she could will forgiveness out of me if she blinked the right way. I didn't give her anything. That night, she whispered, "I'm sorry." And I just said, "I know," because I did know. But knowing wasn't the same as forgetting. And forgiveness wasn't something you could cook into pasta. The next morning, I got up early and went for a walk. When I came back, the photos were gone from the table. But I wasn't worried. I didn't need them anymore, because what they represented had already unfolded. I'd already seen it in her eyes, in her panic, in her silence, in her surrender. She knew. I knew. And whatever this had once been, whatever future we'd planned, it had unraveled beyond repair. The strange thing was, I didn't feel angry anymore. Just clear. For the first time in months, I wasn't living in the fog of doubt. I wasn't rewriting the story to make it easier to live with. I wasn't waiting for answers or hoping for confessions. I had them, all of them, and now it was just a matter of walking the rest of the truth to its end. It was the 5th day after the email. Jenna still hadn't said what really needed saying. She paced through our apartment like a ghost retracing her steps, folding laundry that didn't need folding, organizing drawers that hadn't been touched in months. She cleaned the windows. She vacuumed the baseboards. She even mopped the balcony, which we both knew was pointless. Dust blew back in the second the wind kicked up. It wasn't about cleanliness. It was about control. Scrubbing the guilt out of her own skin, maybe. I didn't ask. I didn't stop her. But I noticed something odd. She didn't leave the apartment. For days. No gym. No errands, no girls' night. She even started working remotely without telling me. Said her office was renovating when I casually asked. I didn't believe her, but I didn't press. I think she knew that too. The last bits of conversation between us had turned into vague shapes. Half sentences. Eyes that didn't meet. She was waiting for forgiveness, for a breakdown, for some hint that she could patch things over with effort and charm, and maybe one last apology that actually landed. But I wasn't giving her any of that. I was done giving her anything. The day Zach showed up, the air felt different. It was early evening. Cold again. One of those dry autumn winds that bites through your clothes like it's reminding you that winter's coming, whether you're ready or not. I was in the living room, scrolling through job boards I didn't even need, just something to keep my brain distracted. The knock at the door was short and solid. No text beforehand. No call. Just knock, knock, knock. Jenna looked up from the couch. Her body tensed like she already knew who it was. When I opened the door, there he stood. Zach, her older brother. Tall, athletic, always wore jackets that looked too expensive for how quiet he lived. He'd always been kind to me, not overly warm, but respectful. The kind of guy you trust because he doesn't pretend to be more than he is. He didn't say hi. He stepped into the doorway, glanced past me, and looked directly at his sister. Jenna was standing now. The room went dead silent. I stepped aside without a word. He didn't ask to come in. He didn't need to. He looked at her. Then at the suitcase near the door, the one I'd packed at the cabin and brought back home. Still zipped. Still untouched. And then he looked back at her. You said, he said, voice low but firm, you didn't want to be like Mom. Jenna flinched. He said it like an accusation, but softer. Not to humiliate her, just to remind her. She didn't answer. Her mouth opened slightly, but nothing came out. Zach didn't continue. Didn't explain. He just stood there, letting the weight of those words fill the space. And they did. The room felt suddenly small, like the walls had moved inward, like the truth was taking up more space than either of them knew how to carry. Then he said, simply, I'm not walking you down the aisle. Not angrily. Not bitterly. Just matter of fact. Like a boundary that had just been set in stone. Jenna's eyes welled up instantly. She took a step toward him. Zach! But he shook his head. Just once. I love you, he said. But I'm not covering for you. Then he turned and left. Didn't wait for her to chase him. Didn't close the door behind him. He left it wide open. Jenna stood frozen, staring at the empty doorway. She didn't cry right away. She didn't say anything. I watched her standing there. Shoulders stiff, jaw tight, breathing shallow like someone trying not to fall apart in front of someone else. She didn't go after him. And I didn't stop him. That silence between us, her and me, was louder than any shouting match we ever could have had. It wasn't angry anymore. It was just hollow. An hour later, my phone buzzed. No name. No number. Just a Dropbox link. At first, I didn't open it. But curiosity has its own kind of gravity. When I clicked it, there was a single folder. Jenna _ I stared at it for a long minute. Then I opened it. Inside were 127 files. Photos, videos, *TS. Some grainy. Some high resolution. Some clearly recorded without her knowing. Others she looked directly into the camera, smiling wide like the world hadn't caught up to her yet. One video stood out first. Jenna sitting on a guy's lap. Somewhere loud, a club maybe. Her friends were cheering her on. She was laughing. Her drink was almost empty. She looked happy. Wild. Free. Too free. In another clip, she was taking *TS off someone's chest. Not someone she knew. Not someone I recognized. Her friends were filming, giggling in the background. You could hear one of them say, "Don't show this to your fiancé." And Jenna? She said, clear as day, "I don't even know if I'll actually marry him." Then she laughed. Laughed hard. The room in the video erupted with applause and teasing. I didn't watch the rest. I didn't need to. The files said everything she hadn't. That this wasn't a momentary lapse. It was a pattern. A choice. A timeline of betrayal. And still, I didn't confront her. I didn't storm into the room and hold up my phone like a courtroom exhibit. I didn't shout, didn't cry, didn't demand she explain herself. I just walked into the kitchen, pulled out my phone, opened the wedding website, and clicked cancel. No post, no announcement, no explanation, just a quiet removal. 6 days before the wedding. Gone. Later that night, she noticed. I could tell by the way she looked at me, like someone who had just lost something she hadn't realized could